Here is something nobody admits. People spend $100 on a single steak, sometimes $300 a pound, then cook it exactly like the $8 beef, cranking the pan, charring it, drowning it in sauce, and murdering the very thing they paid for. Wagyu is not a richer steak. It runs by a different rule. Its fat is so full of oleic acid, the same monounsaturated fat in olive oil, that it starts to melt at around 77 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, below your own body temperature. That is why it dissolves like butter, and why almost everything you know about cooking a steak works against you here. The whole art is doing less, not more. I learned that from my grandmother Yuki, a warm woman who loves to cook. So here are 27 of her tricks, from the simple to the astonishing. Stay for number 9 especially, because it turns a cheap, ordinary cut into something that tastes like it was aged for 45 days. Let us start at the top. Number 27, the small plate rule. When you cook Wagyu for people, resist the urge to serve a giant slab. 3 to 4 ounces per person is right, not the 12 you would plate for a rib-eye night. Japanese kitchens have understood this for generations, and here is why. Wagyu fat is packed with monounsaturated oleic acid, which makes it extraordinarily dense and rich, so a few ounces delivers more pleasure than a full ordinary steak, and piling on more only overwhelms your palate. Every bite lands as luxurious as the first, and you never hit that greasy wall halfway through. Number 26, the dry surface trick. Before your Wagyu touches heat, blot every face of it completely dry with a paper towel. This tiny step is the difference between a pale, steamed exterior and a deep brown crust. A wet surface cannot get hot enough to brown, because water boils off at 212 degrees Fahrenheit and holds the meat right there. Only once it is dry can the surface climb to the 280 to 330 degree range, where the Maillard reaction fires, building hundreds of savory, roasted flavor compounds from amino acids and sugars. Pat it dry, and you hand the crust a head start. Number 25, forget the oil. When you lay Wagyu in the pan, add nothing at all. An old habit in Japanese kitchens is to let the beef cook in itself. And with Wagyu, that is the whole point. The moment that marbled fat hits a hot surface, it renders, and the steak fries in its own tallow, coating the pan edge to edge. Because the fat melts so readily at those 77 to 86 degrees, any oil you add just competes with the pure beef fat you paid a fortune for. Trust the marbling to bring everything it needs. Number 24, bring the iron up first. Set your cast iron over the heat and give it 3 to 5 minutes to reach around 400 to 450 degrees Fahrenheit before the beef goes near it. That Maillard crust only forms once the surface crosses roughly 280 degrees, so a lukewarm pan stews your steak gray. But you do not want it ripping past its limit either, because then the outside chars before the fat inside can soften. A steady, preheated pan gives you a crust and a rendered interior at the same moment. Number 23, sear the fat edge first. Before you lay the steak flat, stand it on its fatty edge and hold it there for 30 to 60 seconds. Cooks who know Wagyu never skip this. What is happening is that you are rendering the band of fat along the rim. It melts that waxy strip into liquid gold that pools in the pan and bastes the rest of the steak, and it crisps the edge instead of leaving it rubbery. Because Wagyu fat gives itself up at such a low temperature, a few seconds on end leaves you a reservoir of tallow doing your work for you. Number 22, keep it moving. Instead of laying the steak down and leaving it 4 long minutes aside, flip it every 60 seconds. It feels wrong, but the science is clear. Frequent flipping pumps heat into each surface in short bursts while giving the inside time to spread that heat evenly. Leave it untouched for a long stretch, and you drive a harsh gradient into the meat, which shows up as a thick, overcooked gray band under the crust. Turn it often and you get an even blush from edge to edge. Set a timer and turn. Number 21, pull it at 125 degrees. The most expensive mistake people make is leaving Wagyu on the heat too long. Take it off when the center reads 125 degrees Fahrenheit for a perfect medium rare, and never push further. This comes back to that low melting point. Drive the interior hot, and that precious fat, which liquefies below body temperature, renders right out into the pan, leaving the dry, dense beef you were trying to avoid. A cheap instant read thermometer pays for itself the first time you use it. Now, those first 7 were all about the pan and the heat, but stay with me because the moves that separate people who merely cook Wagyu from people who truly understand it are coming, especially number 9, which turns an ordinary cut into something that tastes like it aged for a month and a half. Number 20, slice it thin. Japanese Wagyu steaks are cut far thinner than the fat American ribeye you picture, usually only half an inch to 3/4 of an inch thick. Cut yours the same, and the reason ties back to the fat. A thin piece warms through in seconds, which melts the marbling perfectly without giving the lean meat time to overcook. A thick steak fights you because by the time the center is warm, the outer meat is spent. Keep the slices thin and the fat does exactly what it was born to do before anything dries out. Number 19, cut against the grain. Find the direction the muscle fibers run, then set your knife perpendicular to them so you slice straight across. Home cooks have done this for generations, and it is pure structure. Long muscle fibers are tough to break down with your teeth, so cutting across them shortens every fiber into a bite-sized length that gives way instantly. Cut the wrong way and you leave long, ropey strands that chew like elastic, even in tender beef. Across the grain, always, for that melt-in-the-mouth softness. Number 18, chill it before you slice. For those clean, paper-thin slices for shabu-shabu or sukiyaki, put the beef in the freezer for 30 to 60 minutes first until firm but not solid. This is a favorite trick for a reason. Meat is mostly water, and as it starts to freeze, those molecules stiffen the flesh. So instead of a soft, slippery piece that folds under your knife, you get a firm block that sits still and takes a blade cleanly. The goal is firm, not rock hard, so time it right, and you can shave slices thin enough to see through them. Number 17, respect the knife. Use a genuinely sharp blade and take each slice in one long, clean pull, no sawing. A sharp edge slices cleanly through the muscle fibers, while a dull one crushes and tears them, bruising the delicate marbled texture you work to protect. Clean cuts leave clean fibers, and clean fibers stay tender. A few passes on a whetstone is never wasted time when the beef costs this much. Number 16, swish. Do not cook. When you make shabu-shabu, hold a thin slice with your chopsticks and swish it through the simmering broth for just 3 to 10 seconds until it barely changes color. Longer is a mistake. Japanese diners treat this almost as a ritual, and the logic is elegant. The point is not to cook the beef through, only to warm it enough that the marbling melts. And since that fat melts below body temperature, a few seconds is plenty. Leave it longer and the fat washes into the pot and the meat toughens. A quick dip straight to the plate. Number 15, the raw egg dip. And this one is pure Yuki. In sukiyaki, before you eat each hot sauce-soaked slice, you dunk it in a small bowl of cold beaten raw egg. My grandmother did this every time, and she taught me it is not just tradition, it is technique. The cold egg instantly drops the temperature so it will not scald your mouth, and the residual heat sets it into a thin, silky, custard-like coating that wraps every bite and softens the sweet and salty punch of the warishita sauce. If raw egg gives you pause, use a pasteurized one. Number 14, brown the beef in the sauce base. When you build a sukiyaki, do not just drop the beef into liquid. First, lay the slices into the hot pan with the warishita base, the mix of soy, sugar, and mirin, and let them sear before you add more liquid. The chemistry is real. The sugar caramelizes onto the surface, and combined with the browning of the beef, it builds a deep, roasted, faintly sweet layer you cannot get by poaching in broth. Sear first, simmer second, and the whole pot tastes deeper for it. Stay with me because we are leaving the pot behind for the moves most people never learn. And the way the best yakiniku shops get their signature flavor has almost nothing to do with the beef and everything to do with the fire. That is number 6. Number 13, dip in yuzu ponzu. Instead of a thick, heavy sauce, serve your Wagyu with a little bowl of yuzu ponzu, the bright citrus and soy dip. This is the classic partner for rich beef at the Japanese table, and it works because of acid. The sharp, fragrant sourness of the yuzu cuts cleanly through the fat and resets your palate between bites. A creamy Western sauce does the opposite, piling richness on richness until you are done after 3 bites. A splash of ponzu keeps every mouthful as fresh as the first. Number 12, a dab of real wasabi. Skip the bottled steak sauce and place a small dab of fresh wasabi right on the beef. In Japan, this is one of the most trusted ways to season good Wagyu, and the reason is contrast. Wasabi's sharp, volatile heat plays against the lush fat and makes the sweetness of the beef stand out, while the fat, in turn, softens the sting. A heavy sauce would smother beef this delicate, but a whisper of wasabi lifts it. Salt and fresh wasabi together may be the finest seasoning Wagyu ever gets. Number 11. Finish with flaky salt. Season the cooked steak at the very end with a pinch of flaky sea salt, the brittle pyramid-shaped kind scattered over the top just before serving. The reason is texture. Those large, delicate crystals stay intact when you add them at the end, giving you pockets of crunch and bright bursts of salinity that fine salt simply dissolves away and loses. A few flakes at the table, and you get a satisfying crackle against all that soft, rich fat. Number 10. Serve grated daikon on the side, and this is another one straight from Yuki's kitchen. Alongside rich, fatty beef, pile up a little mound of freshly grated daikon radish, what the Japanese call oroshi. My grandmother always kept it next to anything heavy, and her instinct was backed by real science. Raw daikon is full of digestive enzymes, including amylase, protease, and lipase, and that lipase in particular helps your body break down the heavy fat, which is why it has always been served with greasy foods. One caveat that matters, it has to be raw, because heat destroys those enzymes. Grate it fresh, serve it cold, and it makes an indulgent plate sit lighter. Now we get into the moves that even people who think they know Wagyu almost never see coming. Number 9, and this is the one I promised you, marinate a cheap cut in shio koji. This was one of Yuki's quiet triumphs. Take an ordinary, inexpensive cut, coat it in shio koji, a paste of fermented rice koji and salt, and let it sit in the refrigerator anywhere from a few hours up to 24 or even 48. What happens next feels like magic, but is entirely real. The koji is alive with protease enzymes that gently break the proteins into amino acids, that tenderizes the meat without turning it to mush and floods it with glutamate, the compound behind savory umami. So a fresh, cheap cut can end up tasting like it was dry-aged for 45 days. Number 8, bury a tough steak in grated onion, and Yuki swore by this for the cuts she could actually afford. Take a chewy, inexpensive steak and marinate it in finely grated raw onion before you cook it. Its proteolytic enzymes break down the muscle fibers, and the finer you grate it, the better it works. This is not folklore, it is documented history. The dish is called Chaliapin steak, created in 1936 at the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo for the Russian opera singer Fyodor Chaliapin, who had a toothache and needed a steak soft enough to eat. The chef reached for grated onion, and it worked so well, the dish is still on the menu today. Number 7, build your dashi with 2 ingredients, not 1. Whenever you make the broth or dipping stock for your Wagyu, use both kombu seaweed and katsuobushi, dried bonito flakes, never just one. It is a genuine multiplier. Kombu is extraordinarily rich in glutamate and bonito flakes in a compound called inosinate, and here is the remarkable part. When the two meet, the umami you taste does not add up. It multiplies, becoming 7 to 8 times stronger than either alone, peaking when they are balanced evenly. Cooks discovered this centuries before science could explain it, and your broth carries a depth a single ingredient can never reach. Number 6, grill over binchotan charcoal. If you want the flavor of a great yakiniku restaurant, cook your Wagyu over binchotan, the dense Japanese white charcoal, rather than a gas flame. This is the fire those shops are built around, and the reason is the heat it gives off. Binchotan throws off intense far-infrared radiation absorbed right at the surface, which instantly sears it into a tight umami barrier of coagulated protein, while the near-infrared reaches deeper and warms the inside evenly. It also burns so pure that it releases almost no smoke, so the beef tastes of itself. Crisp outside, juicy within, clean all the way through. Number 5, torch it into aburi nigiri. Lay a thin slice of Wagyu over a small bed of sushi rice, then pass a kitchen torch over the top for a moment until the surface glistens. This is called aburi. The flame renders only the very surface fat, and because that fat melts so easily, a brief kiss of heat is all it takes to release a wave of aroma and baste the beef in its own oils, leaving a velvety bite with a whisper of smoky char. You get the best of both worlds, a flame-kissed surface and a tender, barely warmed center. It looks like a restaurant made it, and it takes seconds. Number 4, reverse sear the thick cuts. If you ever cook a thicker piece more than an inch, do not sear it hard from the start. Cook it gently, first in a low oven, until it is nearly up to temperature, then give it one short, blazing sear at the end. Low, slow heat renders that abundant marbling evenly all the way through, so you avoid the gray, overcooked ring a hot and fast sear leaves around the outside. And the final sear builds a proper Maillard crust without pushing the interior too far. Gentle first, fierce last, and a thick cut cooks as evenly as a thin one. Now for the final 3. These are the staples. If you forget everything else in this video, remember these 3, because they decide whether a $100 steak lives or dies on your stove. Number 3, salt early, then wait. Season your Wagyu with coarse salt at least 40 minutes before it hits the heat, or else within the last 3 minutes, but never in the dead zone between. That timing is osmosis. When salt lands on the meat, it first pulls moisture up to the surface. So if you cook in that 10 to 30 minute window, the surface is wet and steams gray instead of browning. But wait past 40 minutes and that moisture reabsorbs, carrying the salt deep inside to season the meat all the way through while the surface dries out for a crust. Salt and wait, or salt and cook now. Just never get caught in the middle. Number 2, let it rest. And this was law in Yuki's kitchen. She would never let anyone cut into meat the moment it came off the heat. And she was right. Give your Wagyu several minutes to rest before you slice it. In those minutes, the proteins, which contracted under the heat and squeezed moisture toward the center, relax as the meat cools, and the fibers loosen and draw that moisture back in. Slice too soon and it spills onto the board. Rest it properly and the meat loses dramatically less juice, holding onto the richness instead of surrendering it. A little patience at the end saves everything you built. And number 1, the trick that holds this whole list together, the one Yuki lived by above all others: cook it from cool, pull it early, and season it with nothing but salt. That is the whole philosophy in a single move. Do not leave it sitting out to warm, because the fat begins to melt and weep before it reaches the pan. Do not push it past medium rare because heat drives that fat right out. And do not bury it in sauce because you paid for the beef, not the bottle. It all comes back to that one fact we started with, that Wagyu fat melts below your own body temperature. So the entire job is to get out of its way and let it melt on your tongue instead of into the pan. Yuki understood that a great cook is not the one who does the most, but the one who knows when to do almost nothing. A pinch of salt, a gentle hand, and the beef does the rest. So there they are, 27 ways to treat Wagyu the way it deserves. Remember where we began with a $100 steak most people ruin without knowing why. Now you know the why. It is that low, luxurious melting point, the oleic-rich fat that softens below body heat, and every one of these tricks exists to protect it. That was Yuki's whole gift, standing at her stove doing less so the food could do more. And I feel her in my kitchen every time I salt a piece of beef and step back. If this helped, send it to the person who always overcooks the good stuff, drop your favorite Wagyu trick in the comments, and subscribe for more of my grandmother's kitchen. There is always another trick worth waiting for.